All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we're in Missoula, Montana, and we are at the Museum of Mountain Flying. And we are here with Harry, who is going to be our guide today. And I am excited to hear about mountain flying and some of what this museum is promoting and what they're trying to show us. I love airplanes, I love aviation, so this is a place that I'm going to enjoy no matter what. So welcome, Harry, to Where Am I to Go podcast.
Well, thanks. Welcome aboard here. So what the museum is really about is we want to commemorate mountain flying in the Northwest. And these planes, most of them here, have a history that we don't want to lose.
Okay.
For example, the first plane you see right here is this 1946 Stinson Voyager, and a plane, I'm not sure if this one particular, but a plane like this would be used to spot wildfires and report back whether or not, how big is this wildfire, how do we have to attack it.
Now, would this have flown on a daily basis 2 or 3 times a day over mountain ranges?
I really am not sure. I'm sure that they would have flown if, a fire tower would have said we see smoke someplace, and they have to go check it out before they would, let's say, send in smoke jumpers or something like that.
Okay.
All right.
And when you talk about mountain flying, you're referring to flying in the mountains, you're referring to forest fires, you're referring to what?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah. Obviously, the Rocky Mountains here have a history of wildfires, and a lot of the people associated with this museum also have a history of fighting those fires or working with the Forestry Service to fight them.
Now, they have also got a smoke jumping school here in Missoula.
Yeah.
It's still operational,
Yes,
right?
it's just down the road a piece.
Okay,
Yep.
and is it one of the only smoke jumping schools in
I wouldn't
the
say
nation? Or?
No, I don't think it's the only one, but it's the only one I'm familiar with.
Okay. And how many people do they train, they go through there? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
No
I
idea.
have no idea. Yeah, I'm not a smoke jumper.
Okay.
I wait for the plane to land.
And they still use a lot of smoke jumpers?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
They're
Yeah.
still a real active part. I know a lot of the hot shots come in from the ground, but
They do.
are they hot shots also that are the smoke jumpers?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
I'm
know
asking
that.
you. I don't know anything.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I mean, but some days you can go to the front door here and look outside, and you can see them training.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can see the jumping out of the planes and doing their practice. So
Okay.
that's cool.
Now you've got a poster over here with the show Always
It's
on it. Was
yeah.
this plane in that movie?
No,
or?
I'm sure it wasn't. It's a movie that has to do with fighting wildfires,
Right.
and is consistent with the theme of the museum here, so that's why it's on display.
Okay. Now, are you a pilot?
No, not a pilot.
You're not a pilot.
No.
From what I understand, flying in the mountains is really kind of tricky anyway because of updrafts, downdrafts, and
I would imagine it is.
I guess adding fire to it would only make it that much more miserable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've watched from where I live down the valley. A couple of years ago, we had a wildfire that I could see from my back deck, and I watched the planes, fighting that fire, and it really increased my respect for those pilots.
And how close down were they coming in when they dropped their
They're pretty darn close. They were pretty darn coming down real low, certainly below the mountaintops.
Really?
Yeah, and it was fascinating to watch and a little scary.
Okay.
So we've got this plane over here with its wings all folded up.
Right.
That's an old World War II TBM Avenger torpedo bomber.
Oh, really?
Yes, wings folded up, obviously, because it flew off of an aircraft carrier, and they had to get more planes on the flight deck that way. But after the war, it was acquired for military surplus and converted from dropping torpedoes to dropping fire retardant on wildfires.
Okay.
And that's why it has a place of excellence here. It's not flying these days, but I've heard talk that one day they'd like to restore that to flying status.
Okay, and it's sitting in here with the wings folded back, and
Yep.
we're in a pretty nice sized hangar. you've got a couple of very large planes in here and a couple that are a little bit smaller. That plane's not one of your bigger ones, but like you said, it folds up, the wings fold in, and it would store pretty easy on the deck of a plane.
Yeah.
As far as being able to stick many in there.
Yeah, it was the kind of plane that the first President Bush was flying when he got shot down.
Oh, okay.
In World War II.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was able to bring back a plane that was pretty badly messed up, from what I understand.
Well, I think the story I heard about him is it was a submarine that had to pick him up out of the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, is that the way it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that much history. I just know that somehow or another he survived it.
Yes, he did. Obviously.
Now, what is the old Chevy doing in here?
That's a Plymouth. That's a 55 Plymouth.
Okay.
And it belonged to one of the principals here in the museum, and I don't know. It's here.
It's here.
It's here.
It's cool.
It fits in with the old planes.
Right.
We have an old car.
Okay.
But the star of the show here at the museum is Miss Montana. That's this C-47 that you see sitting here with its tail backed up to the hangar door. She came off the assembly line in Long Beach, California, just a few weeks before D-Day, 1944. She's 78 years old and still flying. She did her military service here in the States during the war. And then after the war, Bob Johnson's flying service in Missoula purchased her from military surplus for $15,000.
Really?
Yeah. And used her extensively here in the Northwest for cargo, passengers, and delivering smoke jumpers to wildfires. She has the sad distinction of being the plane that delivered the smoke jumpers to the Man Gulch fire in 1949.
Okay.
Where most of them perished.
Okay. And what were the circumstances behind that?
Well, they were fighting the fire in Man Gulch, and the winds shifted, and they couldn't outrun the flames.
Okay.
So it was just a terrible, terrible tragedy.
And why do they call her Miss Montana?
Well, there's a story around that, too. For most of her life, she only had a tail number.
Okay.
She changed hands. Bob Johnson's flying service didn't retain ownership over all these years. She changed hands several times. And then around the year, I think it was the year 2000, I may be a little off on that, but one of the principals here in the museum spotted the plane sitting on the tarmac in an airport in Arkansas. And recognized recognized the tail number as a Montana plane and said, we need to get this plane back here for the museum. So that's what they did. They raised the money and they brought her back here. But she just sat here in the hangar for many, many years. And then in around 2019 or 2018, they heard that the following year there would be the 75th anniversary ceremonies of D-Day over in Normandy, France. And that planes like this one would be delivering paratroopers for part of the ceremony.
Really?
And they said, well, it'd be cool if we could do that. So they raised $150,000 to fix up a $15,000 airplane.
Well, that's just 10 times or 100 times the cost, yeah.
And through an all-volunteer effort, they began restoring this plane to flying status. Now, while that was going on, there was a couple things that happened. One was they realized that they only had one pilot who was certified to fly a C-47, and they needed more. That's where this other plane, this Western DC-3 that's sitting next to her, comes in. They used that plane in order to train 5 more pilots, so that they had a total of 6 pilots in order to get over to Normandy. The other thing they realized was that all the other planes that were going to be participating in bringing these paratroopers all had these neat names and artwork painted on the nose of the plane. Well, all she had at the time was a tail number, no name. One of the pilots said, my grandfather flew a B-25 bomber in the Pacific in World War II. And he had a picture of her. Now, this doesn't show up on your podcast.
There you go.
But it's a B-25 bomber, and what's painted on there is the name Miss Montana and a lovely lady with long legs.
Oh, yeah.
And if we walk over here to Miss Montana, you can see she is the second Miss Montana to ever take to the skies.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So forevermore,
the one is sitting down with her legs kind of out in front of her. This one here's got one leg kind of hanging off the side of off the side of a deck or something, and
I
and
guess
the
a
other
little
leg kind
artistic
of up.
license. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. But it's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, and so she's the second Miss Montana to ever fly.
Okay.
But forevermore, she'll be more than just a tail number.
Yeah.
So that's the some of the history of Miss Montana. By the way, they did get her flying. They flew her across the country, and then they flew her. They took the same route to England that they used in World War II for these planes, and that is up the East
Really?
Coast, then Canada, Greenland, Iceland, over to England. And she delivered paratroopers for the ceremonies. She went on to Berlin. They were having other commemorative ceremonies for the Berlin airlift. She participated in that. I think they threw some candy out for the kids, like they had
Really?
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's been flying ever since. She's flown several times this year, including she did a flyover for the Memorial Day Parade in Corvallis, down the Bitterroot. She had an escort for that, a P-51 Mustang.
Really?
Yeah, that flew out of Hamilton, and yeah, she's.
So you still have 6 pilots?
I don't think all 6 are still here. I think one of them has moved to Alaska, and I'm not sure where all the others are. But one of the pilots, Brian Douglas, he wrote a fascinating book called "Every Reason to Fail," which describes the history of this plane, the restorative efforts, and the trip over to Europe and back. And it's a fascinating read if you're interested in this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, no, that'd probably be really interesting. That is so cool.
Yeah, in fact,
And
this was featured on a CBS Morning News TV show back when they were doing this.
Okay.
Because the name of the book is Every Reason to Fail, because that's what they'd said on the TV show. Nobody thought they were ever going to get this plane over there.
Right.
No way you could restore a C-47 in time to get it over there, but we did.
And did they restore it right here in Missoula?
Oh,
or
yeah, sure.
right here in this facility?
Yeah, yes.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And this is just a twin engine airplane. I mean, this
Right.
thing's huge, but it's just twin engine.
Yeah, radial engines.
A lot of these firefighting planes that I've seen are 4 engine or whatever. So
Well, the ones that I've seen that with dropping the fire retardant, of course, are like that. But the ones that are taking the smoke jumpers in are a little smaller than
okay,
that. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, and how many smoke jumpers could they fit in a plane like this, you think?
I don't know. I don't know what the capacity is, but
Okay.
I think they determine the number of smoke jumpers by the size of the fire. But
Okay. Now back over here, you've got another display.
yeah, this
that
is
is a
display,
smoke jumping display.
Yeah, having to do with smoke jumpers. We have several people who are affiliated with the museum who are former smoke jumpers, even current smoke jumpers.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of this information, in fact, all of this information, I think, came from.
Okay. And you've got a couple of mannequins dressed in the parachuting attire
Yep.
with their clothes and their parachutes and
They're,
all of that kind of stuff. Then you've got chainsaw and tree climbing apparatuses and backpacks and hard hats and picks and shovels and
yeah, the food that they would need.
right.
Is once you're dropped in there, they're pretty much on their own, for at least for a period of time. So they have to bring their own food or have it dropped into them.
And then you have a package with a fire shelter in it.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
a
would be
last
kind of
resort.
scary.
Yeah, that's a last resort. I don't know much about anything about that, but except that if you're breaking out the fire shelter, it's a bad day.
It's not a good thing. Wow.
And we have, of course, these are some of the parachutes that over the years they have used for smoke jumpers.
Now, are they jumping out at very low levels, or
Yes. Yeah.
so
I know
they're-
that much about it. They do, yeah.
So it's pretty risky business.
Oh, it's very risky business, yeah. And that suit that you see over there, I'm told was the original smoke jumper attire when they first started doing this back in the 1940s.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, when did they start doing
I
the
believe it
smoke
was
jumping?
the 1940s, yeah.
Wow. And now, when they jump, are they wearing that suit the whole time, or is that something that they shed and then they end up into something
I'm
that's
sure
a little
they
bit more movable? And
Yeah, they would have to shed that, especially working in heat like we experience this, in the fire season like
Right.
we have now.
and then you've got helmets. All of the helmets seem to have masks on them.
Yeah, that's to keep
that are-
branches out of your eyes and
Oh,
face.
okay, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, they're more of a cage than like a football helmet.
Right.
It's a full cage that kind of bubbles out. Wow, this is pretty neat with all the different parachutes and packs and then you got a supply box over here that they use to drop equipment to the jumpers.
Yep.
And in the box it contains 5 gallons of water, 1 Pulaski tool, which is I just learned this. It's a pick and a axe kind of tool together. Mr. Pulaski invented it.
Yep.
You got a sleeping bag, general purpose first aid kit, freeze dried food for 2.5 days, and 1 cooking can. So they plan on being there a while when they jump.
It's not gourmet dining, but it'll sustain you, I guess. And the photographs are from a variety of sources, and they really do illustrate the history of smoke jumping going way back until pretty much the current day.
Yeah, you've got some of the old round parachutes on up to the square parachutes.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how long these guys trained for this, or?
No, I'm afraid I don't.
Okay. Wow. And then you've got a Johnson Flying Service coveralls, and it looks like a couple of pictures of Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of he pretty much was the start, I guess, of aviation, or at least one of the key figures in aviation in Missoula.
Okay.
Historically. So.
And did he run freight service, or did he? Okay.
Yeah, Bob Johnson's Flying Service, I guess, did passengers as well as freight.
Okay. Probably all over.
That's a guess on my part. I could be wrong.
Right. And as we get back over here to Miss Montana, you've got a pretty good sized door for people to come bailing out.
That's correct. Yeah.
This is pretty cool.
And it's one of the things that differentiates a C-47 from a DC-3 is the size of the door on the side.
Looks like you could probably put 40 guys in there, maybe even more.
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at how many seat belts and seating area it is, it looks like you can put 20 down each side. That's got to be quite the sight when this thing's flying over and guys are jumping out like crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Now, do they have to empty this whole hangar in order to pull this plane out? They just about have to, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
That looks like that'd be a half-day project anyway.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
Okay. What's the story with this plane?
This is just renting hangar space from us.
Okay.
Because we need the money.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the story with that. But yeah, I don't know that it has historical significance as far as the museum's concerned.
Okay.
And as we get over here, that we can see the DC-3, the Western Airlines DC-3. This plane is usually open for folks to go inside and get a look at, what commercial flying might have been like, let's say, in the 1950s.
Okay.
And you can see the door is significantly smaller than what we saw in the C-47.
Right. And the door, when it opens up, has a staircase going in.
Yeah.
We can go in?
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Let's go ahead and jump up here and take a look. Oh, wow. This is actually pretty nice. You've got about 6 different sets of seats that are double, and then you've got a couch with cup holders and everything else in here.
Yeah, it's I'm sure that I would imagine that there were more seats than this when this thing was actually flying. I can't imagine they would have missed out on the chance to sell more seats.
Oh, definitely.
But it's interesting to see and compare it to flying in today's environment.
Now, would they have had the couch in here too?
That's a real good question. I don't know. I don't see how, but
I mean, this is almost more like a luxury tour deal.
Yeah. I don't see how they would have, but it's in here now.
And all the seat covers have an Indian head on them.
Yeah, the logo for Western Airlines. Yeah.
Is that what that was?
Yes.
Okay. Huh. And then you can come all the way on up here and look at all the controls in the cockpit.
Right.
Not a lot of room up here, but I guess you don't need a lot.
I
You're
imagine
probably
not.
busy flying. Wow, this is cool. And we're a long ways up when you look out the door.
Yeah.
We're up here, what, 15 feet, 20 feet. This is pretty cool. And it sits at a pretty steep angle.
Yeah, this is unlike most planes today. This is a tail dragger,
Right.
so it has an angle on it. Excuse me.
In this one?
Yeah, you can come on up here and go in this one.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
All right. Come here.
Now there's a couch up there. Don't let me find you falling asleep.
Okay.
Okay.
And this this small plane here, at one time actually flew. It's the only plane where we encourage the kids to climb on into the cockpit and play with the controls, and it's just a photo op for parents with their kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of a plane was this?
I don't know.
It's small.
Yeah.
It's got the wing over the top, but it doesn't really look like a Piper Cub. So I'm not really sure what it is.
Yeah,
It might be.
Oh, here it's
Hey,
probably.
we got Kamisakas Youngster 2. It's a home-built aircraft built by or designed by Rim Kamisakas. It first flew in March of 1966. And this is one that you let the kids sit in and play
we
with.
encourage them to, if they want to move the aileron or the rudders, go right ahead. Have fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about the biplane up here that looks like the Red Barons?
That's a scaled down version of the Red Baron, but it's just, I think it's on there for display. I don't know that it ever flew.
Okay. A lot of guys have done the home built thing with some of these smaller planes that is pretty cool. Then you've got an engine display back here.
Yeah.
With several of the engines. That's pretty cool. And then
we got lots of models of various, mostly World War II aircraft, large scale models.
okay. And what's with these flight suits? These jackets look like they're fairly old and.
Well, that's old, flying apparel that apparently has been donated to the museum.
That one looks like a super Arctic coat.
Yeah, well, a lot of these planes had no heaters in them.
Right.
And you're flying up at altitude, and it's pretty darn cold up there.
It gets pretty cold. Yes. Wow. Now that one there's a full suit. That's a overall type suit.
Yeah, a leather flight suit.
That's amazing. Some of these old suits. Now this one here looks like it's wool.
Bear fur.
Bear fur on the inside. And then on the outside, wow, that's pretty cool. I wonder how many bears they had to get in order to put those out to the servicemen. And then here you've got one of the old life vests.
Yeah, an
that
old Mae West.
used to be able to pull a string and it had a CO2 cartridge in it that'd fill it up.
Yep, and it was a old Army Air Force flight suit from World War II.
Wow. This is a neat display, the way you've got the octagonal setup with all the different suits in it. And then you've got a big prop. And it says that it's on loan from Ted Reike of Billings. It was never used on an aircraft. It is of the S or sickle type that was produced during World War I days. Wow.
Made of laminated wood.
And it's beautiful. I mean, just the artwork of it, I guess, is what you'd call it. It's a beautiful prop. Huh.
Yeah, the old biplanes, you can see from this picture here that that's the type propeller that was used on those old biplanes.
Okay.
There's a photo of a Curtiss Jenny, which has a similar kind of propeller.
A World War I plane.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Then over here we've got a display of the flying in the 20s and 30s. And that was, there's a wreck. The Johnson Flying Service sitting at McCall, Idaho. Note the size of the wheels. This aircraft was later damaged while making a forced landing in the Little Payette Lake region near Warren, Idaho, to the southeast of Grangeville. But most of them are upright.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, what was the story with the Johnson truck over here that has a fuselage in it?
Oh, that's just that's one of Johnson's old trucks that's been restored, and was used for whatever they needed it to be used for back in the day.
Okay.
That's I forget what year it is. I think it says on it.
It's like a 2-ton truck.
1947. Yeah.
Yeah.
Federal truck. It's been beautiful. It's been restored to beautiful
It's
condition.
a really nice looking truck.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the old farm truck style, but it's got a really nice bed on the back, and then it's got a fuselage in the back of it. So they must have used it for hauling all kinds of things around.
Yeah. Maybe some of those planes that didn't make it and, that we saw in the photographs.
Huh. You got an old tug in here.
Yeah.
That's probably to get your
That's to get
Miss Montana out.
Yeah, and the Avenger. And as you can see, the motors, the engines for the DC-3 are undergoing maintenance right now.
Now, does the DC-3 still fly?
Well, once it gets fixed, it will. It has been flying,
Okay.
but they're doing maintenance on
Right.
it now. So, and putting on new propellers.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So they got to get that one out sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
And then does Miss Montana go to air shows all
Yeah,
around the
was
state of Montana?
Well,
Or are they just kind of the ones within a couple 100-mile
oh
radius?
no, she was at Oshkosh at the big air show in
really?
Oshkosh
In
this year.
Wisconsin?
Yeah, in Wisconsin. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She was
That's
out there
cool.
for several days, which was tough because people came to the museum looking to see her, and she's not here. So, but yeah, most of her flying, I think, is on weekends, but it doesn't have to be that way, I'm sure.
Okay. And what about the helicopter? We got another Johnson Flying Service
Yeah, yeah.
helicopter.
My understanding that was also used for spotting wildfires that were being reported, to go out and assess how big it was and report that back.
Okay.
I don't know what else it was used for.
Huh. Well, what else can you tell me?
Oh boy. Let's see. Well, she has on Miss Montana's history. At one time, she was not when she was with Bob Johnson's Flying Service. I think it was a different owner, but she was flying some soldiers home from Christmas back in the 1950s.
Okay.
She was going from Newark Airport in New Jersey and trying to get to Pittsburgh, but they miscalculated on fuel, and she wound up in the Monongahela River in December.
That sounds a little bit wet.
It was wet, and the pilot and several of the passengers perished in that, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah. But they pulled Miss Montana. Of course, she wasn't called Miss Montana at the time.
Right.
But they pulled her out of the river and fixed her up, and she continued to fly.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she must not have been damaged all that bad.
I guess not all that bad, but, you know.
And what kind of condition was she in when they found her in the field?
Not too bad. I remember reading in the book, Every Reason to Fail, that they had to do some kind of restorative work, I think, to get her flying again, but not a heck of a lot. But it was after that she just sat in the museum, you know, from 2000 to 2018, and she needed a bunch of work at that point.
Well, that's pretty impressive that she was able to recover from a wreck.
Yeah.
Especially one that had fatalities and
Yeah.
some of that. You'd have thought that the plane would have been pretty well trashed. So.
Well, the fatalities, I think, came from either hypothermia or drowning.
Okay.
In the river.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Huh.
but yeah, that's most of what we've got here in the museum. The museum's open every day from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Okay.
And from 10 to 4.
From 10 to 4.
Yep.
And admission price?
Adults, $5. A family will be $12. Children under 12 are free. Active military is free.
Wow.
But and those are the prices. And you can
way reasonable.
You can also, if you wanted to buy a membership, that would allow you access to the museum through the season, and Also support Miss Montana and all these other airplanes in restorative efforts.
That is way cool. So you guys have a website.
We do.
What is it?
Now you're going to ask me. I don't know. I'd have to Google it.
Well, and that's easy enough to do. We'll just go with that.
Yeah.
I was able to find this museum by Googling museums in Missoula, was the first way I did it. And then they do have a website, and you can go to the website and make contact, get directions. It's not really super easy to find. This one here, you go by the airport as you're going west of Missoula, and then you kind of go into the airport parking lot, then you drive past a bunch of buildings and hangars, and then make a right, and it's there. So,
Piece of cake.
piece of cake. It's probably best to Google. Google Maps brought me right here, and it wasn't any problem at all. But I was kind of wondering where I was going for sure as I was coming in.
Yeah, yeah. It can be a little tricky to find, but yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Harry. And if anybody gets a chance, come on out and see the museum. And as I always finish out, I say the world is full of wonder. People need to get out and explore. There's little gems like this all over the place, and you will always learn something new. And usually the people you get to talk to are quite fun to talk with and have interesting stories. And everybody have a wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?